I chose to get sterilized despite my partner begging me not to. Now they're furious, calling me selfish and accusing me of destroying our future. But I believe I did what was right for my body, even if it means losing the person I thought I'd spend my life with." She meticulously checked items off her list, her eyes scanning the shelves for the best deals. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her eyes, though tired, searched the products with a determination that suggested she had more on her mind than just groceries. Each step echoed through the emptiness of the store, punctuating the mundane task with a rhythmic solemnity. Her thoughts drifted to the recent turn her life had taken. The decision to sterilize herself had been a tough one, made in the face of her partner's strong opposition. The conflict had grown like a tumor in their relationship, until it was the only thing she could think about. She felt a pang of regret, but also relief. The idea of not being able to have children, while painful, also brought a sense of control back into her life. Control over her body, over her future, over the decisions that had been taken from her. As she reached up to grab a can of beans, the sudden cramp took her by surprise. She froze, her hand hovering in mid-air, the cold metal just out of reach. Her heart pounded in her chest as the reality of the situation hit her like a ton of bricks. Could it be? Was she pregnant? The room seemed to spin around her as she tried to remember when she had last had her period. It had been irregular lately, but surely she would have noticed something. Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of a cart approaching from the opposite end of the aisle. She looked up to see Tom, her ex-partner, his eyes wide with hope and something else she couldn't quite place. In his hands, he held a bouquet of her favorite flowers, white roses and baby's breath, tied together with a delicate blue ribbon. Her stomach twisted into knots as he offered her the bouquet, his eyes pleading. "I've changed my mind," he said, holding out a small note along with the flowers. The note was folded neatly, almost too neatly. Her trembling hands took it, and she opened it to read the words that would forever alter the course of their lives. "I had a fertility treatment done. We can have the family we've always talked about." The world around her grew fuzzy as anger and betrayal surged through her veins. She couldn't believe he had gone behind her back like this. Without a word, she crumpled the note and tossed it to the floor, the sound echoing through the empty supermarket. The bouquet of white roses and baby's breath slipped from her grasp, the thud as they hit the tiles seemingly louder than any other sound. She stumbled backward, her knees threatening to buckle under the weight of his deceit. Her eyes never left his, searching for any sign of remorse or understanding in his gaze. All she found was desperation, a desperate hope that she would take back her decision. With a deep, shaky breath, Lena managed to compose herself enough to speak. "How could you do this to me?" she whispered, her voice strained with a mix of anger and disbelief. "You had no right." The words hung in the air, heavy with accusation. Tom took a step closer, his eyes pleading. "I know it was wrong, but I couldn't bear the thought of losing you, of us not having the family we talked about." His voice was soft, almost apologetic, but the damage had already been done. Lena's hand rested on her abdomen, feeling the tension ease as the cramp passed. It was a false alarm, but the fear had been all too real. She looked at Tom, the man she had once loved, and felt a chasm open up between them that seemed unbridgeable. "You had no right," she repeated, her voice stronger now. "You didn't just lie to me. You played with my future, my body." Tom's expression fell, the hope draining from his eyes. "I know," he murmured, "but I didn't mean to hurt you. I wanted us to be happy." Lena took a deep breath, her eyes never leaving his. "You didn't think about what I wanted," she said, her voice low but steady. "You didn't think about what it would mean for me to have a child against my will." Tom looked at her, his eyes searching for any hint of softness, any crack in her resolve. "But we could be happy," he insisted, his voice desperate. "We could make it work." Lena felt a strange warmth spread through her, and she realized her hand was still resting on her stomach. It was as if the child growing within her was reaching out to her, a silent voice whispering for a chance. The cramp had been a stark reminder of the reality she had tried to avoid, and now, in the face of Tom's deceit, she felt a sudden and profound protectiveness she hadn't expected. Her thoughts swirled like a tornado, colliding with each other, creating a storm of doubt and anger. Her eyes searched his, looking for some semblance of the man she had once loved, but all she found was a stranger, a man who had been so blinded by his own desires that he had disregarded her wishes entirely. The warmth grew stronger, and with it, a strange sense of peace began to settle over her. This child was not just a result of Tom's selfishness, it was a part of her, a piece of her soul she had never anticipated. With a resolve that surprised even her, Lena made a decision that would change the trajectory of her life. She would not allow Tom's deceit to dictate her future. She took a step back, her hand dropping from her stomach. "This changes nothing," she said firmly. "I am going through with the sterilization." As she turned to leave, The supermarket soundtrack of soft music and distant chatter seemed to fade away, replaced by a whispered conversation in the corner. Two women huddled together, their voices low and urgent. Lena's ears perked up as she heard snippets of their discussion. It's not like the others. Guaranteed results. A miracle. Her curiosity piqued. She found herself drawn to their hushed tones, her feet moving almost of their own accord. Their words grew clearer as she approached, and she realized they were speaking about a fertility clinic. One spoke of a friend who had undergone treatment there and was now expecting twins. The other woman's voice was filled with a mix of skepticism and desperation. But isn't it expensive? She asked. It's worth every penny, the first woman replied with conviction. They have methods that no one else has. It's like they're playing God. Lena's heart raced. Could it be true? Was there a possibility Tom had gone to such lengths to ensure he could have a child with her? She couldn't fathom it. As she turned the corner, she spotted them. A middle-aged woman with a hopeful smile and a younger woman with a look of intense focus. The conversation grew too private to overhear, but Lena had heard enough. The whisper of doubt grew into a shout in her mind. Was Tom's sudden change of heart a lie? A ploy to keep her from going through with the sterilization? Her gaze drifted to the floor where the crumpled note lay forgotten. Bending down, she picked it up, her eyes scanning the words once more. Her hand tightened around it as she made her way to the checkout, the weight of the decision she had made feeling heavier with every step. The cashier looked at her with a knowing smile, but Lena couldn't bring herself to return it. She paid for her groceries and left the store, the chill of the evening air offering no relief from the turmoil within. As she loaded her bags into her car, she noticed something out of place, an unassuming, unmarked door tucked away in the corner of the supermarket's parking lot. Her curiosity piqued. She approached, her hand hovering over the handle. It was cold to the touch, almost pulsing with an eerie energy that beckoned her closer. Without another thought, she pushed it open, revealing a dimly lit staircase that descended into the earth. The air grew thick with the scent of antiseptic and a faint, almost metallic scent that sent a shiver down her spine. The clinic below was unlike anything she had ever seen. The walls were lined with glass cases filled with what looked like human embryos, each one glowing with an unnatural light. The floor was a cold, sterile white that reflected the neon lights above, casting a greenish hue across the room. The sound of beeping machines and muffled cries filled the air, a symphony of life and science that made her skin crawl. Nurses in stark uniforms moved about the room, their expressions unreadable behind their masks. In the corner, Lena spotted a small, unassuming door with a sign that read storage. The cry she heard grew louder, more desperate. It was a baby's cry. She was sure of it. Her hand trembled as she reached for the handle and pushed the door open, revealing a tiny room with a single crib. Inside lay a newborn, no more than a few days old, its tiny fists balled up in anger or fear, she couldn't tell. The baby's eyes met hers, wide and unblinking, filled with a terror that seemed to echo the chaos of her own thoughts. The room was stark and cold, a stark contrast to the sterile, gleaming environment of the clinic above. The crib was old and rickety, and the blanket wrapped around the child looked threadbare. A single bulb cast a harsh light over the scene, highlighting the starkness of the room. The smell of antiseptic was overpowering, and she could feel her own heart racing in time with the baby's wails. She approached the crib cautiously, her heart aching at the sight of the helpless creature. The baby's cries grew louder, and Lena felt a sudden surge of maternal instinct. She reached out to touch the child, but as her hand neared, she saw a small tag attached to its wrist. It was a patient ID with a barcode and the words Experimental Procedure Number 13 printed in stark black ink. A chill ran down her spine. Was this a child born from the clinic's controversial methods? A child no one was supposed to know about? Her eyes darted around the room, searching for any sign of life, any clue to what was happening here. But the room remained eerily quiet except for the baby's sobs. She knew she had to act fast. The thought of leaving this innocent creature behind was unbearable, but she also knew the risks of being caught. If the clinic was indeed involved in something illegal, she could be putting herself and her own unborn child in danger. With a deep breath, she scooped the baby into her arms, the warmth of its tiny body grounding her amidst the cold, clinical setting. The baby's cries grew softer against her chest, as if sensing her protective embrace. She tiptoed back to the main room, her heart pounding in her ears, and slipped out of the storage room, hoping to find a way out without being seen. Her thoughts raced as she climbed the stairs, her mind swirling with questions. Why would Tom go to such extreme lengths? What had this clinic done to her, to them? As she stepped out into the night, the cool air slapped her in the face like a wake-up call. She knew she had to confront him, to understand why he had chosen to cede over their shared future. The drive to their home, now a battleground of their shattered relationship, was a blur of anger and confusion. The baby in her arms grew quieter, its eyes searching hers as if seeking answers she couldn't provide. When she arrived, the house was dark, the silence a stark contrast to the chaos in her heart. She didn't bother knocking. She barged in, her voice echoing through the halls. "Tom, we need to talk." He emerged from the living room, his eyes wide with shock at the sight of her holding the newborn. "What's going on?" he stuttered, his face a canvas of fear and uncertainty. Lena held the baby closer, feeling its warmth and the steady beat of its heart against her chest. "This is why," she said, her voice shaking. "This is what you did. This is the child you forced on me. The one you didn't think I could handle. But here it is, and now we have to deal with the consequences of your actions." Tom's face paled as he took in the sight of the newborn. "I didn't know," he whispered. "They said it was just a treatment. I didn't know it was this." Lena's grip on the baby tightened. "Well, now you do," she said, her voice steely. "This is our reality now, and we're going to face it together, for better or for worse." In the weeks that followed, Lena noticed something peculiar about the child she had rescued from the clinic. It was more than just the baby's piercing gaze that seemed to see right through her. It was the way the child would react to certain stimuli, almost as if it could sense things others couldn't. The baby's eyes would flicker with an unnatural light when Lena was upset, and her mood would mysteriously improve. Whenever the child was near, small objects would seem to hover in the air for a moment before returning to their rightful places. Tom, though still reeling from the revelation of his actions and the baby's existence, couldn't deny the undeniable bond that seemed to form between Lena and the child. He watched from a distance, torn between his fear of the unknown and his love for Lena. Gradually, the baby's presence began to soften his heart, and he found himself drawn into the quiet moments of late-night feedings and diaper changes. He saw in the child's eyes a spark of something extraordinary, something that seemed to transcend the confines of their troubled world. As Lena and Tom navigated the precarious waters of their new reality, the baby's unexplained abilities grew stronger. The child, whom they had named Eli, began to display an uncanny intuition about their emotions, soothing their arguments with a gentle coo or a warm touch of his tiny hand. It was as if the baby understood the gravity of the situation, and his very existence became a silent but powerful mediator, bridging the gap between them. One evening, as Lena cradled Eli, his eyes flashed with a sudden, brilliant light. The room grew cold, and she felt a chill run down her spine. Before she could react, the light grew blinding, and she found herself standing in the same storage room where she had first found him. The crib was gone, replaced by a wall of monitors displaying a series of unsettling images. Other babies, each with a similar tag, crying out in distress. The realization dawned on her. Eli was not the only one. Lena knew they couldn't ignore the implications of what they had uncovered. They had to find out what this clinic was truly up to and how they had gotten involved. With a newfound sense of unity, Lena and Tom began to investigate. They dug through medical records, hacked into the clinic's database, and interviewed former employees, all the while keeping their discoveries hidden from the world. The deeper they dug, the more disturbing the truth became.